Hello everyone, thank you for downloading the Best of the Indian Startup Show Part 2. So today you will hear from Kavita Kapoor. She's an entrepreneur, COO of the Microbit Foundation, technologist and author. Ryan Chadha is an entrepreneur and co-founder of the Jigyasa School in Bangalore. Naveen Jain is a billionaire, founder and CEO of Moon Express. Neetal Parekh, she is the founder and CEO of Innovate Social. Dev Arora, he's the founder of 8 Minutes. And finally, Charanjeev Salva, he's the founder of SingStyled.com. So sit back and enjoy some of the best moments of the Indian Startup Show. Thank you. First is Kavita Kapoor. She wrote a book based on her first-hand experiences across India. The book helps young professionals answer the questions and navigate the dynamic, ever-changing workspace. So if you're struggling with what to do next in your life, then please listen. We talk about a wide range of subjects from experiences of leadership and mentorships. What makes a good boss? What happens if your boss is not very good? Many side projects, blogging, entrepreneurship to women in tech. Thank you.
I am best way to describe me at the moment is an entrepreneur and a deviser of startups. I'm looking after a series of startups here in the UK, including What's My Size. And I'm also looking after a bunch of startups out in India at the moment, which is very exciting indeed. I started life as a developer. I then became an applications architect, working at places like the BBC. And most recently, I have been working out in India, looking after Iris Worldwide, looking after the digital team in Gurgaon, which was a real experience. And in between all of that, I was at London 2012. So I've kind of had a varied career. And I've been looking at my career and looking at the stories and helping mentor young people, especially in my own teams in India and in Singapore, and thinking that, there aren't enough stories to amplify successes that people are having out in Asia at the moment. We get all these management consultancy books out from the West, but actually they aren't as interesting as the stories that I'm hearing in Delhi today. And I also came across a lot of young people who are incredibly confused about their future, enormously confused. They'd done the engineering degree that their parents had told them, or they'd found a job in banking because their mother had told them.
Or a doctor.
Or a doctor, obviously, and all the other stereotypes in between. And that wasn't their passion. It wasn't what they were interested in. They actually were genuinely interested in, testing software or creating a food business or like many of the entrepreneurs on your show that over the last 10 episodes, they just had something completely different they wanted to do. So I started writing a book, which is now titled Kabhi Khushi, Kabhi Kaam, which is just about how do I create a career that I love. The advice, what I really love is the first chapter is about not taking any advice. So it's an advice book where we actually explain how not to take advice. I think in a country where you have so much gyan, you get so much material about what you should and shouldn't be doing. It's really about how to break down the advice you're getting, how to analyze it, how to filter it, and then actually how to figure out what your passion points are. Then once you're in the world of work, it's about how do you get into the corporate ladder, how do you start making decisions, how do you see your bosses making decisions, and what kind of organization you want to get into. Is it an MNC? Is it many, many layers? Is your boss in 3 different countries, before you can actually get to the top decision maker? Or do you want to be in a startup where you're the main decision maker?
Yeah. Interesting stuff. So I'm just looking at the stuff that you sent me, and it says that currently 90% of jobs you could do are in the unorganized sector.
Oh, that really surprised me.
Mainly cash in hand. So that's really surprising.
Well, remember, 70% of India is still rural and in the agricultural industry. So that's seasonal work, and they will definitely be cash in hands. So that kind of takes a large proportion of that number out of the equation anyway. You've got that next equation, which is the people who are, you see them all the time, the Dolby Wallahs and your taxi Wallahs and all those kind of people who are probably not on a structured payroll. And that obviously is a large percentage. But if you think about it in a reverse terms, that means that 3% of people are paying taxes, which probably means that 3% are on organised payrolls, of which, the total 10% means that there's a large proportion of people who are probably on small companies where they're not paying payroll tax. So, your parents might be telling you, hey, you want to join an MNC and go and work for Google or whatever it is. But actually, the percentage of people who are doing that, the percentage of people who could give you advice to do that is incredibly small in India.
So it's been about 5 years since I last visited India. So obviously there's been a lot of changes. Let's say I read this book. I mean, what are the main takeaways from the book, would you say?
Yeah, I think the first thing is about how to analyse the advice you're getting. You're being bombarded at the moment with other people's stories, successes. Should we all leave and go to Silicon Valley and start our company? But on the other side,
let's join the gold rush.
The gold rush. But you've also got musicians who are going onto Coke Studio and becoming enormously famous, backing singers who are getting more recognition for being pure musicians out in Mumbai. So I think there's so the first thing is about just breaking down the advice you're getting and then saying, hey, this is actually what I want to do. The second chapter is all about what you were asking me about, which was about how 90% of the country is in the unorganized sector, which means effectively freelance. And again, if you're a Bollywood actor, you're effectively in the unorganized sector because you're a freelancer going from movie to movie. What differences does that make in the kind of advice that you're going to get?
Good stuff.
We talk a little bit about whether you really want to stay in education. Only 1% of the population that goes to university then goes on to do a PhD.
Right.
And we look at the reasons for that and what that would give you. Towards the third and fourth chapter is all about what kind of organisation you should end up with. And here we just kind of assume that, we're talking about working organisations with many corporate layers. And then we talk, and this is my favourite bit, we start talking about bosses.
Okay.
How do you pick bosses?
Okay.
India's gone through this amazing transition. It used to be quite a socialist, we obviously have pre-partition, pre-independence, which obviously has hierarchical military organisational structures. And corporations that come from that period remain so. And then you go into the new area of quite socialist, where people are creating work for work's sake, which, also created bloated organisations. And then you've got the sort of deregulation of post-1991 and the explosion, an absolute explosion in MNCs coming through from abroad, new brand, and they're trying to do two things. You've got people like Tesco's who are trying to just work with cheaper labour. So obviously these are jobs that might move around, to other cheaper locations in the world.
Cool. In your opinion, what makes a good boss then?
Oh, in my opinion, my favourite example is where the leader of the space program a number of years ago, I've forgotten his name right now, he was... They put a program. It was a space program to get to Mars. It didn't go very well, and the first iteration failed. As you know, the second and third iteration have been incredibly successful. But where it failed, the Uber boss of that program, he got on stage and he took full blame.
Okay.
When it was successful, he stepped back and he let his management team look after, take the glory. And I think that makes an incredibly great leader.
What happens if your boss is not very good then? What advice would you give that person?
That's a really good question. We've been looking at mentors as well. So how do you, first of all, find other people to mentor you? You need a wider group of people at work than just your boss. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And actually creating a group of people who would look after your what's the word, trajectory through the organization. The other thing we've talked about in the book is moving departments as well. One of the great things about working in a larger organization is how do you then negotiate through so that you can move career. One of my favorite things about India at the moment is most people are moving jobs every year to 18 months, which actually provides quite a lot of fluidity within the marketplace. And then we look at techniques in managing and containing your boss. So in terms of things like writing all advice down, making sure that you have, a paper trail so that you don't get actually caught out.
Good stuff. Do you think that people around the world want to be bosses? Surely it's a lot easier just to follow the person.
Yeah, there's a book by a Mumbai writer who talks about all bosses are dictators. I think his name's Drew, if you want to look it up. I'll send you the links.
Yeah, please do.
To the website. I think that some people do. I meet a lot of people who really just want to be their own boss. They don't have a business idea. They don't really have a kind of passion or a reason for their product to exist. They kind of just know that they want to, they want to just be their own boss. But for those people, they're probably better off freelancing. That's the one thing I've seen. People who've got skills, they're great writers, or they're great mentors, etc., or they're really good at some kind of art or craft. It's, not everyone has to create a business.
Cool.
You've got to have a service.
Excellent. So, you've done a lot in your career. What's been the highlight so far?
Highlights. It has to be London 2012.
Okay.
I was born in London.
Right.
My parents are Indian, as I mentioned, but I've travelled the globe with them. My dad was an early pioneer in the computer industry, and like good Indians, they moved countries every 2 to 3 years doing that. But London seems to be the place I've ended up as home, and I come back to very, very frequently. So the opportunity to work on something that has a global perspective on a single location is absolutely amazing.
Excellent. Cool. Why did India do so badly in the 2012 Olympic Games then?
Sports is something that I'm really interested in India, actually. I've been looking at something called Kalari Kites, which is my startup. I'm just experimenting with a lean startup, and it's a sportswear company.
Right. How's that going?
It's really interesting, actually. I built the whole thing in 12 hours.
Oh, wow.
And I've been promoting it since, and I've done another 12-hour lean cycle. And what we did was we followed the Indian tennis players at the US Open, knowing full well that Sania Misra would sweep the boards, which she totally did.
Yeah.
She won the women's doubles, which was great. So going back to your question, I think that sports in India is quite skewed. I also used to work with Adidas out in India, and sports is very skewed, or used to be very skewed to just playing cricket, obviously, within streets, and very male. That's the other thing about it.
Will it be like an ebook then, or are you looking to self-publish, or will it be an audiobook? How will you market this book?
So I originally thought I was going to go through a publisher, and that might still happen in the long term.
Yeah.
As it happens, my cousin, Kavita Kapoor, is an ex-Penguin person, so she's been advising me.
Okay.
But I've got to the point where I really want to self-publish. I'm massively excited I've designed my own book cover, which was very exciting. I didn't expect it to be such an easy task.
Okay.
I really am interested in having it on Flipkart. We were talking offline. When you write a book, you really want to see it in people's hands, being bought in, CP on the streets. So I definitely am really keen to get that done. So I think I'm going to work with a self-publishing company to do that. The big thing to think about is who creates your ISBN and who does your copyright. And so I think I still need a company to do that part. I still need a company to print the books and warehouse it, because I don't really want to do that out of my bedroom.
Sounds exciting. This is your first book, right?
It is completely my first book. Very excited.
And when do you think it'll be published?
I'm aiming for the 15th of January because we're doing a series of TEDx's at the end of January. So just to give a shout out to Bits Polani, who've invited me along. So I'm hoping to have it ready for that.
So will you be going to India to promote this book then?
Yes, I should be out in India in December and January of this year.
Away from the cold weather.
Yes,
very, very strategic.
I think my ideal lifestyle would be living in India over this winter and somewhere else over the summer.
That's what my mum and dad do. They spend,
really?
Yeah, they actually left today, so I won't see them for 6 months now.
Amazing lifestyle.
Yeah, lucky them.
Exactly.
What books do you read then?
That's a really good question. I read a lot more online. So I do read things like The Economist, The Spectator, that kind of thing online. TechCrunch. I'm now listening to your podcast most closely as well.
Round of applause.
And your story. I think your story is fabulous for just getting really interesting insights for what's happening in India today. In terms of, I've been so focused on my own book, I've just been reading management books all year. So Economists, Drew's book, as I was saying, about terrible bosses. I think, but I still like fiction books as well. So
good stuff. You said you went to India. I mean, what's your earliest memories of India?
Oh wow.
Good, bad.
I think as a child, I hated India. To be honest, I mean, as a person that comes back, so we did a lot. I actually lived there. I lived there when I was 4. For 6 months while my visas were sorted out for the Middle East. And I remember, really disliking it. The food, the culture, the differences.
The noise.
And just being a spoiled brat. But over the years, I've fallen in love with India. I really have. I love the energy, the passion, the people, the optimism. I'm really enjoying the new wave of culture as well. I think what's happening at the moment with food and music and arts is also enormously exciting. And I think radicalism as well, activism within the ground. I love the passion of young people who are actually asking for changes within what is actually a huge country. It's 1 billion people, with people at every different stages of life development.
So you've worked in offices in India and in the UK. I mean, what are the sort of main cultural differences?
My main favourite difference is that in India, someone serves you tea. And I love it. I love having someone just turn up with my cup of tea and I don't actually have to make it myself.
You don't have to go to the machine.
Yeah, with no machine. Oh, machines. But more seriously, I think the difference between hierarchy bothers me. So the inability to be able to just go up to the boss and say, hey, I didn't like that decision, or have you thought about this decision? So it's something that, that fluidity of being, to be respected as an equal, regardless of your age, gender, etc. I think that's something that really needs to change within all organisations across the globe, but specifically in the ones that I've been working in.
Good stuff. Last couple of questions then. For someone who is interested in writing their own book, what advice would you give them?
Just do it. I think I faffed around. I didn't focus. I ended up writing it over a year, and I probably only wrote for 25% of that time. And actually, now I look back on it, I'm just like, oh, I could have written that in 3 months and be there. So I think, just actually, it doesn't matter how rubbish it is. Just sit down and write it. And then most of getting it right is in the editing process. So I think that would be my first advice. My second advice is do your marketing, focus on a target market. I originally focused it on people like me, or people like us, where we're traveling back and forth between India and here, and thinking about what's going on. But actually, targeting it on young people who were already asking me advice, giving me a ready-made market. So it was much easier for me to say, hey, sign up for my book. It's coming out very soon. Don't ask me for advice on LinkedIn. Tell me what how we should be helping you, what books we should be reading. And I've already got a database of people that I'm going to contact once the book is ready. So hopefully one of two of them will buy it.
And you've also got a website as well. I mean, what's that about?
So you mean my blog?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so my blog is just kavitakapoor.org. And I've been writing that for a long time. I think sometimes as a woman, we forget to really sit back and highlight some of our achievements. And I say that as a woman specifically because I think that we're worse in it. But I think men also have that as well. I think we don't reflect enough. And so my blog was my own ability, and I'm very open. If you go back to the early dregs of my blogs, I'm a terrible writer. I'm embarrassed by some of it. But you can see what I like about it is over the last 10 years of having that, there's been an evolution of what I've been writing about, what I've been thinking about. It's as random as I am. So sometimes I talk about changes in the tax system in the UK, but mainly I talk about ideas that are coming my way about or bits of code that I've been hacking together.
Okay, so obviously tech, women in tech's quite a big issue these days. What are your thoughts? Has tech failed women, do you think?
Tech failed women? That's a really interesting question.
It's just because every time I go to like developer conferences or meetups, there's pretty much 99% men there.
So specifically on your question, no, women use tech way more than guys. I mean, they play games online more. They interact. If you look at the stats from Sky and Tata Sky as well of who's doing online gaming on the set-top boxes, it's definitely predominantly women. So I mean, women are consuming tech and using it, but as you said, they're not building it. They're not out there. And I think that's to do with, I did something interesting in the last few weeks. I looked at my own bias. It's all very well me being a woman saying, everyone should be a developer, blah, blah, blah. I actually went and had a look. If you go online, there's lots of bias tests. Take one.
Okay.
I took one and I was really surprised. I am completely gender neutral for most things. LGBT rights, colour of skin, that kind of thing. But when it comes to jobs for genders, I have a slight bias towards arts for women, tech, or engineering for men.
Okay.
And that's, and I'm a woman who started out as a developer, one of 70 people, both of my, so I was one of 10 women on my 70-person graduate. And I was one of 3 women in the tech team when I first started training. So I shouldn't have this bias, but I too have it. So I think that it isn't failing us. I think that women are just not, they're just not attracted to the industry for a wide variety of reasons. And so I think for me, I'm really excited about working with people like Tech Mums, who are a great charity here in the UK, working in India in hack teams. I've been doing looking at Grace Hooper conference as well, which is the big technology conference, just to make sure that we inspire as many women to join the industry. Because frankly, we just don't have enough developers, full stop. Doesn't matter what gender they are.
Cool. Last 2 questions. Let's say someone wants to become an entrepreneur. What advice would you give them?
Great question. Do your research. I think with entrepreneurs, I read a really interesting thing when I was pretending to be a filmmaker many, many years ago. And the book started with, if you need therapy, filmmaking is not the place. And I've come across that in entrepreneurships as well. Look very deeply about why it is that you want to create this business. And that shouldn't stop you. If what you've decided is you want to be your own boss, or you want to work less hours than your corporate job, those are perfectly valid reasons.
Yeah.
But build that into your business model. Don't suddenly dive into a 60-hour, all-consuming product that will take you forever to realize its potential. If you want to be uber rich, think about the exit points. That's kind of, and also my biggest takeaway at the moment is to genuinely look at the stories. I think that we are very focused on success stories out there, and we don't look very closely at failure stories. I've failed many, many times in many different guises, but we just don't talk about it and when we do talk about it, I feel like it's not really taken seriously, because you then go on to the next thing.
Good stuff. So, last question then. If someone wants a copy of the book, what must they do? How do they get hold of it?
That would be great. So at the moment, the best way to do that is to come to kavitakapoor.org, traverse through to the book button at the top of the page and sign up. There's a little sign up form on that page. As soon as it's out, we will email you. And if you go there after the book is out, it will have links to the various platforms that I hope to be selling on, which is Amazon and Flipkart.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Kavita, for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Excellent. I look forward to reading the book. Next, I speak to Ryan Chadha. He is the co-founder of an international preschool called Jigyasa in Bangalore, India. Jigyasa is a state-of-the-art preschool which offers a mixed-age environment which encourages children to work and play collaboratively. Ryan is an accomplished sportsman as well, having represented the UAE at all group levels for first-class cricket. So we talk about scoring hundreds to dealing with screaming kids.
My name is Ryan, and I am originally from Bangalore. I was born in Bangalore, but then moved around the world quite a bit while I was studying through school and through university.
Yep.
Ended up working in London for about 4 years in finance, and then finally got to a point in my career where I realized that working for a huge organization is probably not what I want to do. So I moved back to India, and I started a preschool with my mother.
Okay.
I was about 2.5 years ago. We're based in Bangalore, and we've been growing fairly steadily since we started. This year's actually been pretty good for us. So it's a kindergarten, so focusing on children between the ages of 18 months and about 6 years. We've got a number of programs. We introduced a mother-toddler program recently, which has been really well accepted. We've had people coming in from really far away in Bangalore traffic. That's not easy to do.
Okay.
So my role at the school currently is mainly based on around the marketing. So a lot of the online marketing and a little bit of the marketing in the physical world as well. And a lot of the work that I do also revolves around how we communicate with parents. So how are we letting them know what their kids are up to, what their kids' preferences are as far as interests are concerned, as far as activities are concerned. So that's the part of the school that I look after.
Yeah. What was the early days like then at the school?
Early days were slightly tricky because we obviously starting up a school, you have a lot of fixed costs initially, and we started with 5 children. So you can imagine how much money we were losing every month. But obviously that's turned around now. So we just need to keep building.
Well, I mean, what does the law say? I mean, can anyone start a school, or do you have to have special permissions or stuff like that?
So when we started 2.5 years back, there was no proper regulation for preschools, which is probably why you had so many in India. But now they've come up with a law, which is quite a strict law, and it'll probably come into play at some point in 2016. So now you have to follow all of those procedures if you want to get a license.
Okay. I mean, what plans do you have for the future, like in terms of short-term and long-term future?
So our capacity in the current unit is about 55 to 60 kids. So the short-term goal obviously is to hit that number, hopefully in the next year and a half. And then long-term, we're actually looking at a bunch of things. One is starting up an alternative school. So this wouldn't come under the licensing structure of normal schools. This would be an alternative school for people who don't really want to send their children to a mainstream school. So that's something we are actively considering. We will need sort of outside support for that, not so much in terms of investment, but more in terms of qualified people to join the team. So that's the main long-term thing that we're looking at now. I'm not really interested in franchising or anything like that.
Yeah.
Even though there's a lot of people who approached us, simply because there's no way to keep quality if you do that. So in terms of expansion, the main thing would be to tie up with people and probably open a branch with them. Yeah. But that's only if they really understand what we're trying to do and our philosophy and the way we do things.
Yeah, good stuff. What would you say was the highlight so far of your time?
Highlight? Well, there's been a few. One thing that I've realized is the pace at which little children develop is just amazing. I mean, I think it's in this age group, between 0 and 6, where the pace of development is maximum. After that, as we grow older, the pace at which we develop just keeps falling, and most people sort of just flatten out, once they become adults. So for me, the highlight is really looking at so many children go from, coming into school and maybe not even speaking to a point where they're reading, they're being able to do, so many different things, understand a pretty complex sort of, phenomena and, be able to explain them to others. That is the most fascinating part for me, and that's something I see every day, and I see changes in the children every single day, and that's definitely the most exciting part.
Excellent. What were you like at school then?
I only studied because I had to study. I was more interested in sport. I played a lot of sport at school and even at university. So I remember my dad telling me that you will be able. So I used to play even 4 to 5 times a week.
Wow.
In high school, and it was pretty high. It was a pretty high standard. And I remember my dad saying, "You can play as much as you want as long as you keep this certain level of grades at school." So I just made sure that I was hitting that level. There wasn't really any incentive to go beyond that, even though I did manage to go beyond that at times. But yeah, I only got interested in academic stuff at uni. That's why I remember, it was first year uni where I actually sat down and thought about a problem, about a subject in detail, and that's when I started enjoying it. School was just literally just study enough to get the marks, and then it's over.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned cricket, so you had I believe a proper career then in cricket. Is that right?
Yeah. It was I ended up playing quite a lot. I played for UAE for quite a few years.
Okay.
Till I was 18. Then when I was 18, I went to the UK to study. So I played for Loughborough, which is quite a strong sports uni. Yeah. A very tough team to get into. And then I played for Walsall in the Birmingham League, which again is a very competitive league. So I'm happy I played a lot of good cricket. I played against a lot of good players.
Anyone who went on to become famous cricketers?
Oh, plenty. So I played against quite a few of the English guys.
Okay.
So Liam Plunkett, Paul Collingwood. Played against Moeen Ali in the Birmingham League. I played against him a few times, actually, at least 5-6 times.
He's done well.
Yeah, he's doing really well now. So it's good. I played against Monty Panesar. He was at Loughborough, so I used to play with him in the nets quite often. He's a very nice guy.
Yeah. Were you a bowler or a batsman? Sorry.
No, I was a batsman.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So I remember Monty. He just wanted to bowl all day. So he'd just tell the juniors to just keep batting and just keep bowling. So that was pretty good because I faced him a few times in the nets at Loughborough. So
what was your highest? What was your highest score?
My highest score was 164.
Oh wow! Let's just put a round of applause there. I don't have any special effects, so that's me clapping. Who was that against, and how long did that take?
That was, I can't remember the name of the club. It was the first game of the 2007 season.
Yeah.
So it was quite a long while back. But yeah, it was basically a one-day game. So I think I batted about 35 odd overs. So yeah, got it pretty quickly, I guess.
You must miss those days then, being in the dressing room with all the guys.
Oh, massively. Yes, especially at the clubs where it's a really close-knit setup. Like everyone knows everyone else, and we hang out with each other all the time outside of the cricket field. So yeah, that's definitely something that I miss.
Cool. Yeah, how would you sum up your cricket career then? Did you achieve everything that you wanted to achieve?
No, I didn't. I obviously wanted to play at the highest level, which I did. I probably could have. How would I say this? Well, I think had I been a bit more consistent, in my early 20s, I probably would have had a chance to play much better cricket. But at the same time, that was also the time that I was very interested in getting into finance. So I had to make that choice. Do I take up, a less than sort of intense job and focus on cricket, or do I take up the best job that I get and play as much as the job allows me? And obviously in London, the way finance is in London, it's hyper competitive. So if you have to make your mark, you have to give it everything. So I couldn't really play much after the age of 20, I guess. Yeah.
What would you say is hardest then, scoring 150 or dealing with loads of screaming kids?
Well, I think dealing with screaming kids is one of the hardest things you do. But I mean, you don't only have to be a teacher to face that. Like when you become a parent as well, you're gonna face it. And when things are calm in the classroom, it's amazing because you can just see, children just taking all that knowledge in and learning, and their eyes are bright. But when they want to cause a ruckus, that's it, man. You've had it. I mean, literally, you feel exhausted by 2 p.m.
Oh, wow. Good stuff.
Scoring 150, on the other hand, is pretty easy. If you're informed,
So moving on then, I believe you're learning web development as well. So going back to the school then, you said you were in charge of the marketing side. I mean, how do you go about marketing this? Is it online or offline?
Mostly, so it's funny how word of mouth spreads. I mean, so the first point is you just got to get people interested enough to come in and try something. So initially what we were lacking was that we only had the preschool. So even if a parent saw something related to the school but they didn't have a child who needed a school, well, they wouldn't call us. They didn't have anything to do with us. So what we did was, now in the evenings we have an evening activities program, which is open to people from all schools. Okay. So that's something that we market online and offline, which brings people in. And the whole point of these programs is not so much revenue generation, but more sort of get people talking about us. And it's the same with this mother toddler program that we've started. So again, the marketing for that is online, heavily online, through Facebook and other media. We've started blogging a lot as well. And there are a few stores, baby shops in the area, which allow us to put up posters and stuff. So that's another aspect of the offline marketing. But basically what these two programs do is they get people into the school. Once they're in and they see how we work, there's a much higher chance of conversion as opposed to just seeing an ad somewhere. So that's why I don't spend at all on advertising, because it's a waste of money. What I will spend money on is if I can put something somewhere and then get people coming into the school. If I have to pay to do that, I'll do it. But just random advertising, on the web, etc., that I don't do because it doesn't help with anything.
Cool stuff. Let's say someone wanted to start their own business. What tips would you give them? Obviously, you work with your mum, but any other tips?
What kind of business? Any business?
Yeah. Anyone who wants to have a go at doing something.
I think the one thing that I've learned from my own experience and from the experience of a lot of successful people is, there's no point putting a time limit as to when you want success to happen. So people, you hear these stories about a guy building a startup and then selling out 18 months later and stuff. Like, those are 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 10,000. But most people go like 3 years without seeing anything at all. So if you're going to get into something, I would say you need to get into it. Well, firstly, you have to like it enough to do it for 3 years. And you have to get into it with the mindset that, okay, I am going to do this for 3 years. I remember reading on Medium somewhere, this girl had written an article, really good article on her experiences. And her last line was, you have to give a business 1,000 days before it decides whether to go on or not. So 1,000 days is a long time. It's just under 3 years. So that's probably the only thing I tell people. If you're going to start something and then look to quit in 6 months or 9 months, you might as well not start.
Actually, just one question. Would you say your finance background has helped you then, or hindered you?
I think it's definitely not hindered me. I don't think that'll happen to anyone. But in terms of help, I would say it's not so much the finance that has helped me. What has helped me is my ability to learn. So I've now in the last 4 years, I've worked in 3 different industries: finance, educational, and technology. So and probably one thing I'd say, one thing that has helped me is that I find it quite easy to jump into a new field and then spend a lot of time trying to learn as much as I can about that field. And I think that's something that came about as a result of me having studied finance, because I spent a lot of time studying finance and I did all those professional qualifications and stuff. So that ability to learn quickly is definitely something that helps me.
Next, I had the pleasure of talking to Naveen Jain. He's a billionaire and founder of the World Innovate Institute, Intellis, Mood Express, and InfoSpace. He's also a trustee of the board at the X Prize Foundation, where he focuses on finding entrepreneurial solutions to challenges in education, poverty, agriculture, health, and clean water. We talk about Moon Express, which plans to send a rocket to the moon, and as a business venture to collect minerals and resources and bring them back to Earth. We also talk about his new project, Blue Dot, and his time at the X Prize Foundation. Naveen pushes big dreams into action spurring massive cultural and technological change. We also talk about what makes a great leader, the one thing founders should be focusing on, and the best advice he ever received, and to whether there is life on Mars. Welcome to the show, Naveen.
Well, thanks a lot, Neil. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Brilliant. If you could tell me a little bit about Moon Express. It sounds really interesting what you're doing.
Well, Moon Express, there are a couple of things. If you look at the Moon Express as a company or what we do, or more importantly, why is it that we decided to go do Moon Express? Mm-hmm. So to me, landing on the moon is obviously in itself is a big deal, because it is a resource that has been completely unexplored by entrepreneurs.
Right.
So moon is, in some sense, is our sister planet, and we can think of it as our eighth continent. And the amount of natural resources that are on the moon, or for that matter, in general in space, are in abundance. Everything that we fight over on Earth, whether it is land or water or minerals or diamonds or platinum or gold, they are in absolute abundance in space. So to me, going to the moon is obviously about harvesting the natural resources that are on our eighth continent, and bringing them back for the benefit of humanity. But it's also a stepping stone to bigger things. Mm-hmm. Because once you start to think about that, if we are going to be a multi-planetary society, and we do need a plan B, and think about it, if one of these days, if one of the large asteroids hits our spaceship called Earth, I don't think it's going to be very pretty. And if you can ask the dinosaurs, they didn't quite enjoy that process.
That's true. What does the law say about this? I mean, can anyone go to the moon?
Well, interestingly, anyone in a moon belongs to all of us.
Yeah.
But at the same time, just like anything else, it's like international water that belongs to all of us, but we all have to work together not to interfere with each other. That means you can't say you're in international water. If I'm on a cruise ship and some other cruise ship say, well, you're standing in my space, you need to move. Mm-hmm. Everybody has to cooperate to make sure that everybody can live peacefully in that zone, which is the neutral zone. Yes. However, United States, in fact, President Obama just last week passed the law that for United States citizens that they essentially extended the similar type of international water treaty to space that says if a private company goes to the moon, they actually is going to have all the rights to bring whatever resources they bring back, they get to own it, which really is, in my humble opinion, a clarity and a game changer, because now it provides a clarity that if we are going to go spend our resources to go to the moon, and if we bring back billions of dollars worth of natural resources, we actually have rights to those resources. And I think the second part of it is, in some sense, they clarified the interference. That means if you go in there and you're doing some exploration on a particular part of the moon, the other companies or other countries can't come and interfere with you, because that will be, in some sense, an act of terrorism if you're starting to interfere with other people's operation in what they're doing. So I think it just clarifies what has been a natural law, but most importantly, that clarification allows the entrepreneurs now to start exploring things that they would have never done. And I think it becomes probably an amazingly great business. And, as you can imagine, there are, many people have said that the moon has moon alone has 16.4 quadrillion worth of resources. But if you look at the space in general, that pales anything that we would ever even think about harvesting on planet Earth. So I think that's one part of the thing. But from my personal perspective, to me, going to the moon is about inspirational nature, which is about, it's a moonshot. Every one of us in life has a chance to take that moonshot. And to me, it's a literal moonshot. And especially, growing up in India in very humble beginnings and poverty, and dreaming big to be able to go to the moon, in some sense, allows me to be able to say, look, anything is really possible for everyone to do. And in some sense, landing on the moon is that 4 minute a mile. a problem that people thought it was impossible for a human being to run a mile under 4 minutes until the first person showed that it was possible. And then tens of people did that in the following years.
Excellent. What's the actual timetable then for going to the moon?
So we are actually going to be launching it in 2017, which is no more than 12, 18 months out.
Excellent. Will you be going to the moon then?
Obviously, as you can imagine, the first missions are going to be the robotic missions before we take people. And, everyone always asks, hey, when you go to the moon, what are you going to bring back? How much stuff are you going to bring back? And I think it just misses the point that just landing on the moon will make us the fourth superpower. Only 3 superpowers that have ever landed on the moon. That's United States, Russia, and China. And now a small group of people are able to do that only the superpowers have done before. And then that in itself would tell you that, with the exponential technologies, each one of us now has access to things that were never possible, including landing on the moon.
I mean, how confident are you of a success then?
100%. I mean, there is really, even though it's a rocket science, it's a well-understood rocket science. So trick is not, can you land on the moon? You can, of course, land on the moon. Can you land on the moon softly is really the big question. And more importantly, can you do it at a price point that makes a business sense? Obviously, going on the moon the first time, United States spent several billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars of going to the moon. And our mission, initially when we started, thought might cost, $400 or $500 million. And as we started to get going, we thought the mission could be done for $100 million or less. Now we think the mission could be done for under $10 million.
Wow.
And so the point is, as the cost of the technology is coming down, think about the cost of the rocket. What's happening to the cost of the rocket? It used to cost several $100 million, and now the SpaceX is able to provide that rocket for $50 or $60 million. And then you have other entrepreneurs who are saying, wait a sec, we can build a 3D printed rocket that can go to the low Earth orbit for as little as $3 to $4 million. And that's a complete game changer.
Seriously. How big's the team then, and what's your day-to-day role within the company?
The team is about 35, 40 people, and I'm the founder and the executive chairman. We do have a CEO and a whole team that's working on it. And my role really is to provide them with the guidance and the strategy, but not really be day-to-day operation.
Excellent. What are you working on right now then?
So my current thing that I'm really focused on is a company called Blue Dot.
Okay, yeah.
And as you can imagine, the Blue Dot came from the statement that Carl Sagan made, that when you look from the space, our planet Earth is nothing but a small, tiny, pale blue dot. And, in some sense, that provides a perspective that tiny dot is all we have. This is our home. This is where everything that we know happens. Everyone we love, every inventor, everything that happens that we know of is all on this tiny blue dot. So our thought was, why not do things that can help protect this tiny dot, the blue dot?
Yeah.
And so what we're doing now is, starting to think about that there are billions, tens of billions of dollars are spent every single year in the national labs around the world, and the NASA's and Europe space agencies and other universities and research labs. And 99% of the stuff really just sits there. So why not bring the great set of entrepreneurs and really infuse the entrepreneurship with the great innovators and come up with the ways to solve some of the humanity's biggest problems. Because as an entrepreneur, you can imagine, my belief is that there is not any problem that's large enough that innovation and entrepreneurship can solve. And now, especially with the interdisciplinary approach, as you're finding that a lot of these exponential technologies are starting to converge together and to able to do things that were just never possible before. So, for example, now the Cost of the sensors are coming down. They're becoming more and more powerful. We have these Android smartphones that are connected to the large cloud, and the processing power of these clouds are massive, and the cost of computing is close to zero. The cost of sensors is coming down. Can you start to put these things together for healthcare diagnostic? And can you really build a really cheap device that can diagnose most common diseases around the world? And if you were to do so, as you can imagine, that's going to help billions of people, and at the same time create amazing businesses that can be worth tens of billions of dollars.
So, I mean, in 3 to 4 years' time, what would Blue Dot look like then? Would it be like a series of corporations then? Or
so
devices?
Blue Dot is an operating company, and what we're doing is now we're working with NASA and the national labs and universities, and we have identified the technologies that are able to diagnose whether when you're sick, whether you have a bacterial infection or the viral infection. Do you have a skin cancer? Using electronic nose type of technology, you can breathe on the instrument and it will tell you whether you have diabetes, whether you have a lung cancer, whether you have a throat cancer, and to be able to diagnose other diseases using nanofluidic, such as if you have a malaria or a dengue fever or a flu or Ebola or TB or HIV. So all of those things are going to start to become accessible to consumers so that each one of us can become the CEO of our own health and starting to get to control our own healthcare. Because today's healthcare essentially is really a disease care rather than a healthcare. And there is really no way for people to have a preventative or have a diagnostic so they know day to day how their health is doing. So we want to open up that black box and start people to realize that they can control their own health. And not only that, then you start to bring in a lot of the things around merging the synthetic biology, merging the human data with pattern matching machine learning. So you can see that once you start to decode our human body by sequencing your own genome, sequencing the metabolome, sequencing the microbiome, sequencing all the MRI and the 3D body, you can start to look at machine learning to see what disease is caused by what type of changes in your body, and to be able to in fact use some of the synthetic biology tricks like CRISPR to be able to modify the DNAs or modify the certain cells of the body to be able to in fact get rid of the viruses. So using a lot of the CRISPR technologies to be able to cure HIV infected people, to be able to cure many of the diseases that are in fact very difficult to cure nowadays. But CRISPR type of thing can essentially start to get rid of those viral diseases that have been very, very hard for us to cure so far.
You're also a member of the X Prize Foundation?
Yes, Neil. I'm at the board of the X Prize Foundation. I'm also on the board of Singularity University, which really is looking at exponential technologies. And I'm also on the board of UK Longitude Prize, their advisory board.
Excellent. I mean, so what do you look for then? Is it the idea, the execution of the team? I mean, how do you go about deciding which team goes ahead?
So to me, when you're looking at innovation, the first thing you ask yourself is that, God forbid, if we are successful in doing what we're trying to do, is it really going to be impacting hundreds of millions of people around the world? And if it can't, then it's really not a big enough problem. Secondly, is this something that can actually scale? That means, is it something, if I can prove it in a small market, is it easy to scale? And the third and the most important part of the thing is, can it create a sustainable, profitable business? So I'm a firm believer that philanthropy should never be about giving money. It should be about solving a problem. And any business that's not a profitable business is not a sustainable business. So I fundamentally believe that unless you can create a profit incentive for everyone in the chain, the supply chain or a food chain, you will never be able to create businesses that can sustain in the long term.
What would you say has been your highlight so far at your time in X Prize?
Obviously many things. I mean, if you look at the X Prize Foundation itself, it has, done quite a few things. One is obviously making the space travel affordable and accessible. So our first X Prize essentially is what launched the Virgin Galactic. We did the prize for 100 miles per gallon equivalent car that is now being put into production. We did the prize for oil cleaning that in fact would change the way when the next oil spill happens to be able to do it 6 to 8 times faster than they have been able to do in the past. So I think what you find through incentive prizes is that it's rarely that the winner of the prize comes from the industry. And what we have really learned is that if you go to an expert, you can get incrementally a better solution. But if you want completely disruptive ideas, they always come from non-experts. And we find that time and time again that all X prizes are actually won by people who are outside the industry.
Interesting. Just going back to space travel then. I mean, what's the timetable to go to Mars, for example? If you get to the moon, and then obviously next stop could be Mars.
Very recently the NASA published a paper that to go to Mars or beyond, the best thing we can do is to actually go to the moon. And the reason for that is, if you think about leaving the Earth, 97% of the weight of the rocket is actually the fuel. Right? And the farther you have to go, the more fuel you need. And the more fuel you need, just to carry that more fuel. So this really becomes a circular problem. So what if you go to the moon and use the water on the moon? Water is really the hydrogen and oxygen, H2O. And that becomes really the rocket fuel. And you start to create the fuel depot on the lunar orbit, on the Earth or geo-Earth orbit, or even the low Earth orbit. That means you can now have the rocket that carries very little fuel, just like when we go on a long distance car drive. We don't carry all the fuels that we need. We refuel along the way. So what if we just take a tiny fuel that we need to go to the low Earth orbit, refuel ourselves, go to the geosync orbit, and then refuel ourselves to go to the moon, Mars, or anywhere else we want. So essentially the moon becomes a stepping stone for us to learn to live off the planet Earth. It essentially allows us to create the fuel depot on the way that makes the travel to space cheaper. And also the other thing that's really starting to happen is the reusable rockets. Once you are able to reuse rocket that Blue Origin in fact demonstrated just last week, the cost of going to space comes down significantly, because imagine if you had a plane that you only could use once going from London to San Francisco, and you could only use it once, the travel is going to be very expensive. The fact we have a reusable plane, if we have reusable rockets, the cost of travel will be nothing but the fuel cost. And that will come down to 100K or less.
Do you think there's life on Mars then?
Of course. I mean, whether it's life on Mars or whether there is life in space, there is no doubt in my mind. It is statistically impossible to believe we are the only living human beings or living beings in space. I mean, just in our own galaxy, there are billions and billions of planets, and there are billions of galaxies. So it is statistically impossible to believe that there is not life somewhere else out there. In fact, my belief is, if you think about on planet Earth, the humans really evolved in the last 100,000, 200,000 years. And if you think in the last couple of 100,000 years, we have become so smart from a dumb chimpanzee to a massively powerful neocortex that's able to solve some of the most complex problems. Imagine in some other planet where the life started instead of 250,000 years ago, maybe say 10 million years ago or million years ago. Think about how far ahead they will be. In some sense, they will be looking at us just like we look at the ants. We don't go stop and talk to the ants and say, "Hey ant, how are you doing?" So point is, they may be looking at us and saying, "Oh my God, these guys walk and they go and drive to a place in a plane that actually goes like a car and then takes off, and it takes them days to go from one place to another place rather than just appear and disappear like Star Trek, right?" So they just atomizing and really doing a teleportation, and they may be really saying, can you believe they actually have to talk to each other to communicate their ideas? Their brains just don't communicate with each other directly.
Weird. You're doing so many things. How do you stay on top of things?
Well, obviously is, in some sense, you as a human being just have to continue to be intellectually curious. Mm-hmm. So to me, the day you stop becoming intellectually curious is the day you actually die. Mm-hmm. And, even if your human body is alive, you're like a zombie. So I think, to me, once you are intellectually curious, you want to learn. And in some sense, you stay young. And I believe there is no doubt in my mind that we will be able to cure the one and the final disease that affects every single human being or every single living being is called aging. Mm-hmm. And I know there is no doubt in my mind that one day we will cure aging. Mm-hmm. And once we cure aging, how are you going to live for healthy and a long time if you are not intellectually curious and constantly learning?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What was like growing up in India like then? What was the early days like?
Well, obviously we grew up in a very humble beginnings, and we were very poor. There were days we didn't have food to eat. We moved from village to village, and most of the studies were done where there were no really schools per se. There were no tables or chairs. We sat on the floor and wrote on the floor, and life turned out to be an amazingly wonderful. My sister went on to do a postdoctorate in applied mathematics. My younger brother had a PhD, and I'm the least educated person with an engineering degree from IIT and MBA. And I came to the United States with $5 in my pocket. Mm-hmm. And God has been amazingly kind to us. And I believe, with that kindness and the number of people who really helped me along the way, mm-hmm. I feel a tremendous amount of obligation that the people who actually helped me don't need my help. So I do my best to, instead of paying back, to pay forward, mm-hmm. and hoping to inspire millions of people around the world to do amazing things, to be able to find their own moonshots, mm-hmm. to dream so big that people think they're crazy, and never be afraid to fail. Mm-hmm. Because you can change societies if you can change people's mind. There is nothing more powerful asset than a changed mind. If you can change people's mind to think of abundance rather than think of scarcity. We tend to limit ourselves when we think something is scarce. Then we fight over it. We tend to hoard it. But when we know something is in abundance, we create more of what we need, and we constantly are moving forward as a society. So, for example, when you and I are sitting in a room, we don't fight over oxygen. We don't say, hey, Neil, move forward, move away, you're sucking my oxygen, because we know it's in abundance. Mm-hmm. But so my point is, it's the mindset. Because as opposed to using less of what we have, what if we say we can create as much of what we need? So, for example, if you talk about fresh water, we're living on a planet that 70% of our planet is nothing but water. Obviously, it is salt water. But if we can produce energy in abundance, then we can desalinize the water. Or we can find technological innovation that allows us not to be able to use so much water that we currently use. So, for example, the majority of the fresh water is used for agriculture. So, what if we are able to use innovative techniques like aquaponic agriculture or aeroponic agriculture that reduces the need for water? And then you take a step further and say majority of the agriculture is actually used for feeding the cattle. So what if we don't have to raise cattle? What if we can create beef using stem cells and the biofactories and create the muscle cells, which are really the beef? And now, essentially, you start to think about solving a freshwater problem becomes a synthetic biology problem of creating a muscle tissues using the stem cell of a cow instead of raising the cattle. Right. So I think it changes the game, and you start to think about how you're going to go solve these massive problems. And as you probably know, the cattle do more damage to the environment than humans can ever do in terms of driving the cars, fossil fuel cars, mm-hmm. or having factories. Majority of the damage to the environment is done by methane that comes out of belching and the poop of cattle. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have to raise cattle, we will find that we will do a tremendous good for the environment. So if you care about the environment, don't worry about driving Tesla. Just stop eating beef one day a week.
Who would you say is the most interesting or inspirational person that you've met so far?
Well, really, that's the hardest thing, because there are so many people I really respect and love and admire. From people like Ratan Tata and Bill Gates or Elon Musk or Richard Branson. I mean, these people have just been amazing in terms of what they have done, and they're caring for the planet, they're caring for life, and just inspiring enough people to go out and do great things.
Last couple of questions then. What's the best advice you've received then?
The best advice I've received from myself was from my mom. When I was going for college, she says, son, I know you're going to be very successful. Just remember, always spend less than what you earn. And she did not tell me what she meant was that's called profit. So whether you start a company, always spend less than what you earn. Right? So I think that has really, from my perspective, I've never bought a house that I couldn't afford, so I didn't have to take a loan on it. So really constantly thinking about that. And really the other thing that my mom told me was, son, you can go out and do anything. The sky is the limit. And what she meant really was that, hey, son, the sky is nothing but a figment of your imagination. And your imagination is the only thing that stops you from doing great things. So even though she thought it was the sky, but what she really meant was the sky does not exist. It's your imagination that creates the sky.
Excellent. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs? What should they be? What's the one thing they should be focusing on?
Dream so big that people think you are absolutely crazy, and never be afraid to fail. Because you only fail in life when you give up. Everything else is just a pivot. And what
books and blogs do you read?
I read a lot. So I read, in every subject. So when I spent a couple of years just learning about neuroscience, I probably read 20 or 30 books on neuroscience. Then I started reading the books on genetics, and then I started reading the books on synthetic biology. And, now I'm reading the books on other subjects. So, I just constantly are learning about different fields from nanotechnology to neuroscience to artificial intelligence to machine learning. And because I really think the more you know about different industries, you are able to apply a lot of those knowledges to your own industry. So when people think about thinking outside the box, really what they should be thinking is thinking inside a different box. That means they apply the learning of one industry to a different industry.
Actually, one question. What makes a good leader then? Obviously, you're a leader and you know other leaders as well. What traits do you think has a good leader?
I think the trait of a good leader is someone who is able to inspire other people to be at their best. It's not about managing people. It is about inspiring those people to dream, to find their own moonshots and find their own big dreams to be able to go fulfill. So if you can inspire people to do great things, you will essentially, the societies will change.
Next, I speak to Neetal Parekh. She's the founder and CEO of InnovateSocial.com. It's an online platform to make it easier for people to engage in the social impact space. Neetal has over a decade of experience in corporate, education, non-profit, government and social enterprise. We talk about how she got started, how you can get started with social enterprise, to her volunteering work in India with her mother. She also talks about her time as a mentor inspiring social entrepreneurs during the Startup Tech for Good Week in San Francisco.
My name is Neetal Parekh, and I'm the founder and CEO of Innovate Social. And it's basically an online platform to make it easier for people to engage in the social impact space.
Excellent. Where did you get the idea from?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've always been interested in kind of social impact, or finding ways to create impact with our lives and work. So that kind of stems back even in high school, and participating in the Red Cross Club, and in college, doing different internships. I had a chance to volunteer in rural India after my undergrad, and in graduate school, being part of Public Interest Law Foundation and things like that. So it's kind of an interest of mine. And then through my work experience, I started blogging a lot professionally, and doing a lot in the social media space. So blogging became kind of a good platform for me to explore new topics. And as I was learning about social entrepreneurship, the legal structures and business models and, resources for startups that are interested in this space, it all started as a blog. And then in the last 6-8 months has really kind of become more of a startup or, like a company and a full endeavor in that way. So
is it just yourself doing it or is it a team behind you as well?
I have a global team. I'm the person that's working on it full time, but I definitely have people all around, and I've worked with amazing people in India and South Africa, all across the US. So that's been exciting and a fun way to connect as well.
Excellent. What's like the main features of the website then?
So the main things are it's basically the way I've kind of thought about it is like how can we remove the friction to engage in the space? Because I think of the social entrepreneurship and social impact space as a funnel, and deeper in the funnel there are some really amazing resources, whether they be conferences or academic journals and things like that. But at the top of the funnel, just to invite people into the space and introduce people to terms and opportunities, I felt like there was a gap there. So everything I create is to help that part of the funnel. So to that end, the kind of product lines I think of it are there's a podcast, a blog. Yep. The podcast is with thinkers and doers in the space who can tell their personal stories. So I think a lot of things are framed when you know someone's story. There's a new book that just came out called 51 Questions on Social Entrepreneurship. And it's a FAQ of common questions and responses, but it's also a story itself. It's told in the story format, so it makes it kind of more accessible. There's a new online class called 8 Things Everyone Should Know About Social Entrepreneurship. And one of the really exciting things, and kind of the things that probably relates to your work, is there's this idea of getting these resources out through lists and in kind of dynamic lists that people can contribute to, lists of fellowship programs, of books, of different things, so we can start centralizing that information and make it really easy so people can find what they're looking for. So that's what we've just pushed those out, 30 plus lists in the last month. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how people engage with that and what we can create from that, having some of that information in one place. So
what's the state of social entrepreneurship in 2016 now? Is it in a good place or a bad place?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's in kind of an exciting place, because I think it's beyond being at the very nascent early stages. It's that, that it's been around now for some time. So now we're seeing like kind of the next stage of, maturation, if you kind of think of it. So you see legal structures, like in the US, there are 31 states or jurisdictions that have a legal structure for a for-profit business that has an impact motivation. And the ancillary to that, the B Corp, the B corporations, there's a certification that's global. We're seeing, new countries all around the world kind of invite that into their space to have, local businesses be able to become B Corp certified. There's globally, it's emerging and evolving very differently. And we talk about this a little bit in the book too, but different countries have different social situations that kind of call for different types of social entrepreneurship. So if you look at a country such as Japan or China, there's an aging population. So there's, and then you look at other countries like in the Middle East and other places where there is, they call it a youth bulge. There's a bulge, so all of those kind of social situations create different calls to action for social entrepreneurs, because the issues are different. And so the ways that governments and local investors support local social entrepreneurs is kind of different. And so that makes it kind of interesting.
Cool. I mean, can you share any milestones or achievements during your time?
Great. So in the last 6 months, I think, though this blog has been around for 4 years, I think what's happened in the last 6 months has been like a lot of the products have been built in that way. Like, so there were interviews, but it wasn't a podcast, and now it's a podcast and available on the different platforms. The class was just like a little idea, and now it's available. And the book has been something that's taken years, and so I think for the milestones have been in actually creating and offering these products. And I think with every milestone, I think it only welcomes the next challenge. So I think now the next, the next kind of thing is thinking, how do we reach our audiences? And we chatted a little bit about this before the interview too, but now that these things are kind of out in the world, finding, the best ways to reach the audiences that it really can impact, affect, and really care about, about these things. So
yeah, you seem quite busy. I mean, what are you specifically working on right now then?
So right now, it's actually, I spent a number of hours yesterday contacting local bookstores and local news organizations about the book. So that's also a new part. I've never published a book, and this is independently published. So it's almost like now hitting the ground running. I've done a few interviews this week, which is exciting. And I've been accepted into a fellowship program called the Starting Block Fellowship, which will take place in Los Angeles in February. So so now just kind of getting excited about this next stage, and also trying to find a little bit of balance. So it's not, so it all makes sense.
How do people get hold of the book?
So the book is available on Amazon and Kindle, and you can find out more and get a free excerpt on 51questions.com.
You mentioned the class. I mean, how many people have signed up?
So right now it's been released just about a month ago, and there's not much marketing behind it. So just a handful of people. The reviews have been good. Helpful, but yeah, now finding ways to let people know. And again, it's just another way to engage in the content, because I think you just never know how people engage in content. You can't necessarily assume that everyone reads blog posts or listens to podcasts or reads books. They may prefer to see, to kind of have a live class, like a class that they can engage in.
So is this an offline class or is it an online class?
It's an online class. It's through Udemy.
Okay. You actually started as an attorney, is that right?
Yes. So my background is in law.
Is that what you always wanted to do?
I don't know that I always wanted to do that, which is funny because I'm not exactly, conventionally practicing law. Yeah. But I think I loved the idea of international law, and so I even had a chance to study abroad in Geneva and Strasbourg at the connected with the UN and stuff. So I think it was the idea of representing people and issues and things like that was exciting. So,
and you said you did some volunteering work in India. Where was that, and what did you do?
Yeah, so it was in Puj, which is in rural Gujarat, a central state in India, and basically it was 2 years after a major earthquake there. After the 2001 earthquake, and so it was at a place that was creating a boarding school and some kind of trying to build schools in that area. So they were literally in their makeshift campus with kind of mud huts and things like that. And I and other volunteers, we taught English classes and also volunteered in the office. So I had 2 classes of students of 5th standard girls class and an adult class, which we was for teaching English, and it was really an amazing experience. I think I definitely probably learned more or gained more than I was able to offer. So
excellent. Any highlights?
One of the most special things about that time was my mom actually came with me, and that was kind of amazing because
that's got to be a first.
It was, and because having grown up in India, she volunteer work was important and everything, but she had not gone to rural places and volunteered like this before. So it was a really special thing that we got to do together. So I think that was really cool.
Excellent. I believe you attended the Startup Weekend as a mentor.
Yes, yeah. So I've done a few Startup Weekends. Startup Weekend is really a great experience, and I would encourage people, if they're exploring entrepreneurship, to check out that or other programs like it. But I went a few years back as a participant, and then have participated in a couple, and then I had a chance to mentor recently. And it's really interesting because I think it just shows you that sometimes even in a short time, for there it's 52 hours, amazing things and amazing amounts of work can happen if everyone is kind of focused and working on it. So sometimes we think, my little idea, my entrepreneurship idea is going to take years and years, and I'll have to find this and do that. And then you go to this event, and in a weekend, you can have some prototype of an app. Like we in one that I participated in, we actually had like a wireframe of an app that we could show the audience like on a phone that was that was available. I mean, it's amazing the kinds of things that you can do, and of course you have to have team members that all have different skill sets. But I think it's a great way to like take that initial step that is the most daunting in entrepreneurship, is getting started, and you're with a bunch of people who are also in that kind of exploratory phase and also are ready to kind of put in the hours that weekend and just see, what they can make out of it.
Were there any good projects that you can talk about?
Yeah. So there's a great little film made by this film company, All Forward Films, and it's a little mini documentary. And if you just YouTube Startup Weekend Tech for Good, I think it should come up. But so in that, you'll some of the groups, they were working on such interesting ideas. Like one of them was thinking about how do you make blood donation easier. So they looked at the kind of the current situation of blood donation, and right now you have to go sign up, go to a location, and see if they need, then go and check out if they need your blood. There's all these things that can, all of us probably have an intention. If it was easy to give blood, we would maybe do it more often. So they said, what if you combine things like a transportation to the location, like kind of thinking an Uber for blood donation, with things like using apps and different ways that you'll know which location needs the type of blood that you have. And so just removing those and then, making it so that like the hours that you're available, that is when the blood can be accepted versus, just trying to fit into the hours that, that are at the clinic or whatever. So it was really fascinating. And it came from a very real story of one of the founders, who had an experience with his grandfather and, abroad trying to get regular blood donation for his disease. So it's just, I mean, I think that's the other thing that's really interesting, especially with social entrepreneurship, is these ideas often stem from personal and very real stories.
Excellent. So you were a mentor then. What questions did they ask you? Can you remember?
Yeah. So as a mentor, we were able to hear the pitches and give feedback. And because we've all been down this path of entrepreneurship and pitching and things like that, I think it's that we could kind of give them, the friendly, constructive, but feedback, but along with the kind of questions, because we knew that the judges, that once you get into the judging time, it's a pretty short time that they have to tell their story and then respond. So it's really important for them to put their best information first, So sometimes by telling us, someone who's not on their team, we can kind of provide that, ask the questions about like, hey, so what is your target market? Or how are you going to reach that? Or, one of the, questions related to kind of their topic. How are you going to measure impact around this? So those things are kind of helpful, and it's things that they've definitely probably considered in the process, but they might not have articulated it or found a way to express it in effectively. So
excellent. What advice would you give to social entrepreneurs wanting to start something?
Yeah, I would say
speak
this
to you
is
first.
like yeah, definitely. I hope. Come to the website.
Do the course, yeah.
You'll find something that will be useful to you in some way. That's really great. And I would say for someone thinking about creating a business with an impact motivation, there hasn't ever been a better time. Being able to leverage technology to lower costs to make things happen, in addition to being able to measure impact in new ways, I think it's just a really incredible time. And I think that even seeing the emergence of this space is showing that there's this kind of greater shift in consciousness happening of what kinds of businesses we want to collectively create. So I think there hasn't been a better time. And if you can do a combination of read, learn about things, and then also just jump in and get started, I think that'll be, effective, because doing one of the other too much might make it not a positive experience. But if you kind of do a combination of always trying to be a sponge and learn as much as you can, but then not being afraid to just, jump in and get started, I think will be a good combination.
Jump in and get started.
Yeah.
Next, I speak to Dev Arora. He's the founder of 8 Minutes. 8 Minutes is on a mission to revolutionise the solar energy sector by helping homeowners and businesses make the transition to solar energy. We cover a lot of ground, including what is clean technology, how we got the idea, the current state of Indian clean technology scene, how big the market is in India, great marketing advice if you don't have a budget, and advice on anyone wanting to start a clean tech company.
So I work with a company, 8 Minutes, and at 8 Minutes, we believe the world would be a better place if clean energy became the default source of energy that powered people's homes and workplaces. Okay. And the way we make that happen is by letting you generate solar energy from your rooftop and let you pay for the clean energy at a lower rate than you would be paying to your electricity company. And we essentially let you make that switch with little no down payment at all.
Excellent. So for those people listening, what is clean technology?
So if you look at the market today, specifically the energy market, and I'm going to talk specifically related to it since we're talking about 8 Minutes. The market today is driven as a commodity. Energy 1.0, as I call it, is driven by coal, oil, and gas. The features of a commodity is basically it's dirty, it's limited and scarce, it's inefficient, it's inaccessible, and it's expensive. The price of electricity you pay with a commodity is increasing every year, right? The technology itself is about 2 centuries old, and the amount of losses that it incurs, the inefficiency in the system itself, is about 30%. And not to mention, it's not sustainable for the planet. Now, when you talk about a transition from a commodity to a technology-driven market, and that's what clean technology is essentially about, the upcoming revolution that everyone's talking about. You're talking about technologies like solar. You're talking like technologies like wind and nuclear. The features of these technologies are they're clean, they're abundant, they're scalable, they're efficient, they're accessible, and most importantly, they're affordable. Right? They're always improving. They're always becoming more and more efficient. Right? So they're designed to be made accessible and affordable by essentially anyone.
So what's the state of clean technology now in 2016?
I think that 2016 is essentially very similar to the 1980s of the computer revolution. Okay. It was a time when computers were becoming really personalized. It was a time when people no longer talked about computers being these huge machines that took up the size of a room. It was a time when computers were becoming something which was portable, something which was more affordable. And when you talk about the entire transition that's been happening for solar, it's exactly like the 1980s of the computer revolution, right? So we believe 2015 is the year that we will sort of see the world transitioning towards a clean state of energy. And that is because the efficiency of the panels has gone up. The cost has come down to a level which has made it affordable and competitive to what you're currently paying to your electricity company. So all of these factors have just come up and made this point in time, the 1980s.
Okay, we're in the 1980s. Excellent. When did you actually start this business then? How did you get into this? Go for it.
So we started about 11 months back.
Okay.
And the entire came into picture when I wanted to install solar on my own home.
Okay.
And so I called in a bunch of different companies to come and evaluate my home and see if it was a good fit for solar.
Yeah.
And all of these different companies came in and they told me different system sizes. They told me different costing. They told me, I needed an X amount of system size, an X amount of cost. And I was very, very confused. So I started researching into solar and got into how, what sort of system size I should choose, what sort of pricing I should be paying. And then I sort of realized that the cost of solar was too expensive for anyone who wanted to buy it. And especially seeing the kind of, if you read about the COP21 that happened, that we're heading to a place wherein, it's becoming very unsustainable for the planet. So if anyone wanted to switch to solar today, I realized that they would have to pay a lot of money to make that switch. And if you talk about the way that technologies come and go, if you want to bring a product to the mass market, you have to make it affordable. If you want to buy an iPhone today, which I love, you would have the option to buy it on EMI. You would have the option to basically have it and have whatever you want at a price that fits your pocket. And solar was not available at that price for me.
Excellent.
And what I wanted to do was make it affordable and bring it to the mass market.
Okay. So you started 11 months ago. I mean, how's it gone so far? I mean, you're getting traction, you're getting customers.
We're getting a lot of traction, more than what we can handle at this point.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So we've had about 11 customers so far, mostly educational institutions and homes and industries.
Excellent. So do you actually design and manufacture the panels yourselves then?
No, we've partnered up with manufacturers who help us get these panels.
Yeah. I mean, how big is the market in India then?
If you talk about the market in India, we're talking about the government has planned 100 gigawatts of solar energy, which means about 30% of the total energy coming by 2030 will be coming from renewable energy. And 60% of that is actually from solar. So yeah, it's a huge market.
How many cities do you cover then?
We have, so one of the models that we work on is to make it accessible across the country, right? Not only affordable, but also accessible. So we don't have to be physically present in every single city. We have a network of installation partners. So if you call me from Bangalore today, I'd be able to have a team down in 24 hours to actually do a site visit on your home.
Excellent. What does the law say about this? Can anyone set up their own company doing solar?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we encourage it. So we have a partner program called the Solar Advocates Program, in which we encourage you to start your own solar company. And the way it works is that you would partner with us and sign up with us as a solar advocate. We would help you set up a business. And what you would essentially do is convince more and more people to switch to clean energy and clean solar energy. And for each client that you would bring to us, we would sort of help you with the back end in terms of getting the installation done, providing you with access to financing, and getting your entire business set up.
Excellent. What's your role within the company? I mean, what's your day-to-day role?
So I'm primarily looking at managing the entire operations in terms of making sure everything's going right. So in terms of the marketing aspects, I'm also involved in sales. I'm also involved in operations and financing. I'm pretty much everywhere.
Okay, seem quite busy.
I'm actually supporting everyone. Okay. Yes.
Seem quite busy. So what are you working on right now then?
Right now, we've got a bunch of projects coming up, around the country. So what I'm doing is aligning for investors to come and invest in these projects. It's very crucial. So we kind of business model we have that virtually anyone can just set up a solar plant on their rooftop at zero down payment. The kind of traction we're getting, it's very important to have a back funnel of investors who are willing to fund these projects. And we've seen a lot of traction from the investors as well. So my current focus is on basically getting these investors to come and invest in clean energy.
What does the name come from then? 8 minutes?
So 8 minutes is essentially the time it takes for the sun's light to reach the earth. It's the distance between the earth and the sun. That's how it came up.
And can you share any milestones or achievements during your 11 months? Any highlights?
So in fact, recently we have, I'd say, expanded our team size by 6 times in a month. And we've just closed a very big order. In fact, we're going to be touching 1.5 megawatts of installation before the end of this financial year. So I think that puts up pretty much that gives us about 0.5 of the entire market share of solar in India today, just in 11 months. So I think that team has done an incredible job.
Excellent. I mean, plans for 2016, and how do you see this working out for you?
2016. So in 2015, we've primarily focused on getting businesses and commercial workspaces to solar. In 2016, we see ourselves entering the residential market for the first time, which means supporting smaller system sizes and getting clean energy into people's homes. So that's going to be our primary focus for this year.
Excellent. I mean, how do you go about attracting customers, either online or offline?
So as I said, 80% of our customers come from the Solar Advocates Program, which means we're helping businesses set up and actually go and convince more customers to switch to clean energy. And in return, they get a pretty hefty reward for every single customer they convert to solar through 8 minutes. So that's where 80% of our business is coming from. The rest is through referrals. So we haven't even started marketing yet, and we've gotten quite a good traction.
Excellent. What's your background then? Is this something you've always wanted to do then, or did you change careers?
Actually, computer science. So I did my computer science from NIT Kurukshetra, and then sort of worked at Delhi airport for a bit, and then a Silicon Valley company in Delhi called ClickIt, mostly on getting business set up for these guys. But clean energy is something that I've been really passionate about, and it's a problem that I feel we should be solving. It's now or never.
What's your leadership style? Is it hands-on or hands-off?
It's very hands-off. I'd say, in fact, just to demonstrate this point. So when we started the company about, in March, a month later, we had a very interesting person come and contact us. This guy was still in college. And he said he wanted to help set up our operations in Bangalore. and a very passionate guy. And he said he's going to take care of marketing and grow our business in the South. And I was like, okay, why don't you sign up as a solar advocate and help us out there? Mm-hmm. So he did. And that relationship sort of turned into more and more the kind of, this kid basically got into more daily meetings than I did with customers. Okay. And he was able to gain more traction in Bangalore than we were getting in Delhi single-handedly. Mm-hmm. So Bangalore is a great place. But what we saw was the kind of traction he was able to achieve, the kind of results he was getting. We wanted him on our team. Mm-hmm. And today he's a big part of our team. And he's still in college. He's not attending classes. He's still getting into more meetings than I do. And he's running the company in Bangalore with as much support as we can provide him. And that's a sort of innovative and culture that we are trying to inculcate in the company, which is people are going out there and creating new value.
Excellent.
Themselves.
Excellent. What were the early days like? I mean, were there any obstacles getting this off the ground?
Oh yeah, it wasn't always easy getting customers. Or investors or partners. When you're starting off, there's a lot of problems. So I think during the early days, we sort of came up with this interesting marketing strategy that we would distribute letters to get customers. So personalized letters to customers to deliver to their houses. And since we were short of cash, we sort of went ourselves and in the night and put letters in people's homes and got quite a good response from them.
Okay.
So that's pretty much how we got our first customer through a nice letter. Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever diversify in the future? For example, you're doing solar at the moment. Do you think you'll go into wind or biofuels or fuel cells? Or are you going to stick with solar?
I think out of all the alternative energy, while I was evaluating, solar is the one which is going to gain traction. That's because the amount of demand that's come in for solar, the kind of efficiency that's increasing, it's more than any other alternative energy source available. Mm-hmm. And I think solar is going to be the default source of energy, which is going to be powering your home.
Mm-hmm. How are you going to compete with the established fossil fuel companies like oil and electricity and gas?
Oh, I think we've already beat them. Mm-hmm. So beat them in the sense that whatever tariff that you're paying, whatever the electricity rate is that you're paying today to your electricity company, I can hands down beat that. Okay. So we've already taken over, and over the next few years, you're going to see a big transition coming your way.
Excellent. Last couple of questions then. What books or blogs do you read?
I'd say my favorite, my most influential book has been The Fountainhead.
Fountainhead.
Yeah, by Ayn Rand.
All right.
It's a definite read for any entrepreneur and anyone just thinking about getting into a business. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Excellent. And why was that influential for you then?
So the kind of perspective that Ayn Rand takes in terms of the value of profit-making companies, the value of capitalism, the value of just rationalism and objectivism, that really got to me. It was like, this is the only way that you can think, and there's anything else is just absurd. Mm-hmm. It teaches you about what to value most in life.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Let's say someone wants to start their own clean tech startup. What would you say to them? What advice would you give them?
This is the best time to do it. There's no better time in history that you should be getting in on this. There's a lot of gaps. As I said, this is the 1980s of computers, and Apple started from a garage, beaten IBM. Energy is much bigger than information technology ever could be. So start your own company in a garage, and you'll be bigger than the best of us.
Last but not least, I speak to Charanjeev Salva, aka The Fly and Sing, on Twitter, founded of Sing Styled, the world's first style store created exclusively for the Sikh community. The team handpicks and curates a special subscription box every month with turbans, styling, grooming, and lifestyle products. Sounds exciting. So we talk about how we got started, the importance of the turban, how he and his team go about creating products, through plans for the future. Since launching, they're doing really well. It's an interesting fact that 68% of the purchases are actually made by non-Sikhs. So listening to find out why.
SingStyle is the only company right now across the globe which has done a subscription box for the Sardars.
Excellent. Where did you get the idea from?
So the idea came from my, for the last 15 years, I have been struggling, to find grooming products for my beard.
Okay, right.
Also, you don't get trendier turban colors.
Right.
So Sikhs as such, so the community is around 30 million Sikhs across the globe.
Right.
And we all face the same issue.
Okay.
We don't get our turbans. We don't get grooming products, and there are a lot of fashion bloggers, but there are hardly few of them who actually focus on the C community or like the Sardars, because we all have a unique identity, right? So we needed a focused product. So that's when we said, okay, let's curate a platform which can serve this need. Right? And that's when we started working on it. We said, right now in phase 1, what are the 3 main challenges? Is basically we look at the turbans, we look at the beard care, and then we look at the styling part.
Excellent.
Right? And then there will be a want and a desire phase, which is going to come later on.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this then?
We had the idea started last year in October, and we went live with the beta version around 75 days back.
Okay. And
so we've been actually curating products. We've been figuring out the products. Like I've become a guinea pig.
Okay.
So whatever product that we build is first tested by Neetal, and I don't share it with anyone until I'm not satisfied.
Oh, right. Okay. And how big is the team then?
So we're right now a 4-member team.
Yep. Okay.
We have outsourced a lot of our work. We've got friends and family members who we have included.
Okay.
So we have got a friend who is who's a dermatologist.
Okay.
So he works with me on curating the beer products.
Right.
So that's how we've outsourced. We've managed in that way.
Okay. I mean, can you share any stats? I mean, how many orders have you processed, etc.?
So till date, so on the 75th day, we did around 275 orders.
Wow, excellent.
Right, without any marketing as such right now.
Right.
60. So the best part is like 68% of the transactions which have happened have been happened by non-Sikhs.
Oh, right. Okay.
That was amazing because so apparently when I started asking them the question based on these orders, it was like I needed to give something to my Singh friend that I didn't have any product in mind.
Okay.
And then I came across your website, and then I was like, okay, this is the perfect product that we can actually gift it to us a lot. Okay.
I mean, when you started, do you think you were going to get those numbers then?
No, we had a certain percentage in mind. We had said that okay, it'll be around 70-30%, 70-30, 70% will be from the diaspora, and the others going to be coming from the other communities. Because we've got the beard care products, right? But the whole the transaction for the last 75 days has been like it just changed the thought process.
And for those, for those people who don't know, what is the importance of the turban? What are the values connected to the turban?
So the turban is a part of the whole identity, right? So it's like our gurus have given us this identity. So it's like you have the one of the parts. So the turban, the beard, the kada are the physical form. You can actually see them. Right. You can identify. Okay, he's a Singh.
Yeah.
Right. I've actually written an article on the turban, and I have been saying this. Like for example, brands across the globe spend billions of dollars to create a brand identity. You've got a guru gifted identity, which is for free. Right? So even if I stand in a room of 1,000 people can actually figure out this guy is a Sardarji. And I've actually, whenever I've traveled across the globe, been to various countries, and I've been like surprised when somebody comes across and says, "Hey, Sasrikal."
Okay.
Right? So it's because they've identified that this guy is a Sardar. Right? So that's how you welcome a Sardar. So the turban has been of significance, and a lot of people had been out of the community because grooming is a very difficult part, right? To keep your hair or your beard. But now I started slowly seeing people coming back and accepting that okay, I was a Sikh and I will now respect my identity. We got users, we got customers who have said, I cut my hair, say 15-20 years back, right? I don't know how to tie a turban. And now they wanted to know how to select a turban. If I could help them in, teaching them how to tie a turban. So people are based in Bangalore, we are based in Bombay. So there's a geographic constraint. So I tell them, okay, what you need to do is before buying a turban, you can just go down to a Gurdwara and learn the art. Then you can come back to the site, and whenever you want, whatever length you want, you can go ahead and buy it.
Excellent. So what's your role within the company, and what do you do on a day-to-day basis?
So I'm the founder of SyncStyle. So I look right from product development to marketing to operations right now. I do play a part in the technology part, but we've got two other founders who one of them is purely into technology.
Yeah. His
focus is what is the next big thing. So that's what the question every day I ask.
Yeah.
What are we going to be doing the next big thing? Right? So because we need to move, SyncStyle cannot be just of 3 portfolios. It needs to evolve.
Yeah.
So what is the next big thing are we talking about?
Excellent.
So except technology, I play all the roles. I also do delivery sometimes whenever it's required. And I love to do that because I get to see the excitement on the customers.
Yeah.
So the best part is that we built this SyncStyle subscription box.
Yeah.
Right? And we don't allow anyone to even select the color of their turban.
Wow.
Everything is done by a stylist.
Okay.
Right? So we basically, we should not say it's called stocking, but whenever you place an order, go down to your profile, we dig in deep about through your social media and
right. Okay.
What's your skin tone?
Right.
How tall are you?
Okay.
What kind of work do you do? Right?
Okay.
And based on which the stylist actually starts building your SyncStyle box.
Okay.
So whenever I've gone to quite a few people, I've delivered the box and they have opened the box in front of me and they were delighted because they were shocked that even we could pick up the color of a turban which they didn't have. So a lot of people had that question mark that I might be having this turban.
Yeah.
And I said, you don't need to worry.
Yeah.
Once we bring the box, you see the box.
Yeah.
If you have a turban, we'll replace it. We'll replace a complete box.
Okay.
So up till now, we've had 100% hit rate on that.
100%. Right. Okay. Excellent. I mean, what's your plans for the future? Say in like 6 months and to 12 months. Where do you see the company moving forward?
So currently, we are known as a turban company, which is something which was originally not there in our minds. That's not the position that we want. So what we are doing is that we are working on quite a few product portfolios, which will actually. So when we say SyncStyle, the tagline has been "We're the dressers for Syncs."
Right.
So from so the whole objective is to curate a wardrobe.
Okay.
Right? It's not only that I'll be helping you get your turbans and your pure oils or your pure washes, but my whole thing is how do I dress up a complete Sardar? Right? So whatever is required, right from their dressing, their accessories, their shoes, whatever is required, that is what is going to be coming in the next 180 days. That is the objective. But how that needs to be presented is something that we are working on like day and night.
Okay. How long did it take you to get your first order? And what was that like?
The first order came in 6 hours.
Okay.
So the thing has been that I'm quite active on Twitter.
Yeah.
And so people know me as the Flying Sick.
Okay.
And people knew on the background that I am working on something which is connected to the diaspora, but didn't know what it was.
Right. Okay.
Right. So when we went live, one of our friends actually happened to just check the site. And later on I got to know that he used to check it every day to see whether we have gone live. I mean, we just wanted to shut him out because I was very, very scared about, the logistics.
Yeah.
For me, experience matters more than just selling a product.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Right from the order comes in to how do we package it, to how it need to be delivered. Everything has to be, there has to be an experience to it.
Yeah.
Right? So when he checked it, he placed an order and then he went on to Twitter and said, you know what, SyncStyle is live. And then his family and friends are hitting the site. And then, it was a word of mouth. That's how, so the first 50 orders came purely from word of mouth through people who we knew on Twitter. And then it has been spreading across. So now today, SyncStyle now ships to around 132 destinations across the world.
Wow. What's the most popular one?
Yeah, so we get orders from Canada, we get orders from United Kingdom, we get from the US. We've just started now getting orders from Australia. That's something which is it's a great thing.
Yeah,
it's like the product is getting accepted.
What would you say was the highlight so far?
The highlights so far, I can't. So that's a question. It's a very open-ended question for me. But if you go to say like how people are accepting it as a brand, so for them it's something which is pretty new. It's something which nobody had dared to do it. Maybe people didn't think it was a required or a need-based product. No, it was a need, but not many have tried doing it. And now there's a lot of expectations. So I get every day mails from people across the globe. I got a mail from a lady from Canada who wants now us to work on a product which is for her son.
Okay.
It is because so he's a 9-year-old kid,
right?
And but that's the right time, and you want to know what is your identity. A lot of people have been questioning themselves, even including me. When I used to be maybe in school, I had that question: what is my identity? Right? A lot of people have ranked me for my identity. But when you start knowing the history behind it, you start knowing, okay, what do you stand for? For example, my turban stands for equality. My turban stands for, if you see a Sardar and you call him for help, he'll definitely come and help you. So it's a pride that I'm wearing a turban, which is a signal that I'm always available to help. Right? Now, if the 9-year-old kid is being dressed well, all his grooming is taken care, and he is being not. So I'm not driving faith, I'm not driving religion, but I'm talking about you should be proud about the identity that you have. When you're proud about the identity, you will follow whatever you can. So that's a fun bit, right? So for a 9-year-old kid, that you can create a SyncStyle box and send him, he'll be like excited, and he'll have a turban in that. Could have a few other. It may not have the grooming items what we give for adults, but could have a few other items like the salai. Could have anything in that, right? So I'm still working on that on that particular product. We get mails from people that they tell me, you know what, I need a salai for. So we use a salai to tuck our hair, and a lot of sardars face an issue when they're traveling abroad because it's a metal item. Yeah. Right. So they want us to work on items on materials which will help them to carry along with them. Okay. Cool. So these are the ideas. So it's a beautiful thing. Every morning when I get up, there's a story available in my inbox. Right? Yeah. It could be in terms of a requirement. It could be in terms of an idea which people are sharing. So that's something really great about working on SyncStyle. It's like we are delivering. So like how Zappo says that we deliver happiness. Yeah. Cool. That's what we have been doing, right? When we are into customer and chatting. That's what we believe in.
Yep. So in the future, is this going to be? Are you going to stay 100% online, or would you plan to create retail like an offline environment?
We have no idea about it. So this is how we are just freely flowing right now. That's how I say every day, one day at a time, one customer at a time. We may have an offline or we may not have an offline. That's a call which we're going to take in the future. Yeah. But based on what we are currently discussing, I'm not sure when we're going to go offline. Right? Because the kind of experience that we need is something that the online platform can offer right now. Yeah. Right? Also, what happens in maybe if I have an offline option, the problem is going to be that it's going to be at only one center, and I love controlling things because I can control the experience. I cannot be present, or my colleagues cannot be present in 10 other locations. So we don't want to do that. We are saying whatever we can do right from one center, let's try that first. Let's crack that first. So I don't know. Offline is a totally different ballgame. I'm not sure when that's going to happen.
What advice would you give to entrepreneurs?
The only advice that I have is, if you have an idea, please go ahead and test it out. rather than asking 300 people about whether this idea is going to work or not. Because till you don't experience it, you will not be able to, move ahead. So like when we started SingStyle, I didn't know where to go down and build up beard oil, right? I didn't know where. These are the thoughts before we even started planning for SingStyle, right? Where do you get turbans? I just knew my turban guy who I used to go and buy. It starts happening. You just have to make a decision. But I need to start a company, and I will give my 100% to this particular baby. It's like you become a father to a company. So your company is your son, and you're the father to it, right? So if you plan to have a baby, then you'll have to go ahead with it. The same thing happens with being an entrepreneur. You've decided that you have a great idea. Go ahead and plan. Start implementing it. Nice. Don't get. I meet a lot of entrepreneurs who keep on asking questions about how will this happen, how will that happen, how will I get my first customer. It just happens. That's all for what I can tell entrepreneurs. Just go ahead, implement the idea, but you should start with the minimal amount of investments.
Yeah.
Right? You don't need to think about funding and all. A lot of people have this whole notion for startups all about funding. Till date, SingStyle has not gone ahead with co-funding, right? And the whole idea has been that our customers are our investors, right? We started off with a minimal amount of inventory, and today we're just scaling up. It's all thanks to those customers. So, as an entrepreneur, that's the only thing. Just free flow. Just start it off.
Free flow, start it off. Excellent advice there.
That's the end of the show. If you liked it, please leave a rating and review of the show. Just search for the Indian Startup Show on iTunes, Stitcher, and now on Spotify. If you're building something exciting, please send me an email, hello@neilpatel.co, or tweet at Indian Startup SH, or go to facebook.com/Indian Startup Show. We'd love to connect. And finally, if you want to do your own podcast, check out my class, Getting Your Podcast Off the Ground. Check out the show notes and get Skillshare Premium free for 2 months. Thank you and goodbye.